It's like really weird now. There's this massive shadow over here.
Conversion Hotel 2016 for the third time. Manuel has already been here 3 times. Was it for Conversion Hotel?
Yeah.
3 times?
Yep.
So he's an experienced visitor. We work together, as in I use Effective Experiments, Manuel's tool, for Euroflorist. We did a couple of sessions today. We had an unconference today, applied for a couple of sessions, and Manuel did a session about the conversion optimization process.
Yeah, it's more about people, processes and priority, and the challenges that people face on the road to becoming a high velocity testing team or running a high velocity testing program. So what I wanted to do with that session is to basically have a discussion with the people in the room to really understand what challenges they faced, whether it was getting buy-in from stakeholders or clients, getting the test to run at a decent pace, being able to work efficiently with other key players like their developers, and also communicating results back. So it's again getting buy-in for future.
Yeah.
So there's all those little challenges that I wanted to know what people were facing at this point in time.
And when you do these sessions and you talk to people in other countries, what are the similarities do you see? What are
the similarities? So because conversion optimization is not such a mature market, we still see that problem with buy-in happening, where agencies or companies are trying to prove their worth as a CRO team, but they're still having that problem. So it's not something unique to the Netherlands. It is happening in the Nordics, where it's even at a much lower level. In Germany, in the UK to some extent, even though the UK market is a bit more mature, there is still problems over there. So we see people diverting funds more towards SEO and pay-per-click, whereas CRO is seen as an afterthought. So that's the key challenges. And then you have the other challenges where low traffic is a big problem for many countries. And how can you run tests when you have a low traffic website? Those are the 2 key things that I see repeating everywhere.
And I guess low traffic is mainly an issue with the clients you see here in Europe, since we have smaller countries.
That's right.
Smaller markets, and in the US it's a different ball game.
That's true.
Where it's if you gain traction, you have a really big market, and it's different.
Exactly. With the European countries, especially if it's in the language of that country, then you're really looking at much lower traffic. So for example, if it's an English website, chances are you will still get some buy-in from the other European countries. But if it's a Dutch specific site, then you're going to be hard pressed to find customers from Italy, for example, or vice versa. And therein lies the problem. So you have low traffic websites, but people being told that they need to do A/B testing, but the market's not mature, the traffic's not there, and the cycle continues.
The results are not there, not what you expect.
Exactly.
So what do we tell these people?
Well, the main thing, if you are struggling with low traffic websites to start with, you need to first focus on the ROI, focus on the money. So do things like user testing, do things like running heat maps and click maps to understand where the site is losing money. And if you can show that making those changes is generating more ROI, then surely you can invest. You can get a better buy-in that way. To give you an example, we worked with a client where really low traffic, but they didn't really have the budget to do a full website design. So we did a small-scale user test for them, and it was shocking for the client, because they saw that everyone who was using on the site was really frustrated to a point where they were actually swearing. And that's when you know you've hit a nerve over there. So once they saw that, then that's immediate buy-in, because they can see it, because for them they have blinders on. They never interact with their customers to a point where they can see those problems. If you can define those problems and identify it and show your stakeholders, that's when you can start getting some momentum there.
Now you do have good involved users. If they start shouting at your website, you can also have people that
Yeah.
go away.
That,
If you start shouting, then
that's the thing. You want users who
Yeah.
are going to give you that feedback, because then you know where to improve. If users come on the site and they, you will have 8 out of 10 users who will see something, they'll get frustrated and go to another site and try it out over there. But the ones that actually give you feedback are the ones you want to really listen to.
Yeah.
And that's
cool.
how it should work.
And in general, you've seen more sessions today and yesterday. What do you think so far?
I think the sessions have been really good. I skipped one session because I've seen that before, but the copywriting session was really good.
Yeah.
Especially about the umbrella words, and also copy which is more feature driven than pain driven, which was really good, because it got me thinking quite a lot, and I made lots of notes in that session.
Yeah. Yeah.
The email marketing session was interesting to a point, but I wasn't so engaged in that one. But overall, the sessions have been really good at Conversion Hotel.
Do see the challenge here, and we both also organize conferences, so we recognize this. The conference is growing, get more and more people in, but then there are a lot of general sessions. So if you want to speak to the majority of the audience, it needs to be an accessible, broader topic, and then I feel, compared to last year at least, that the topics get a bit broader, and then it's less of the expert level, should I say? Otherwise, you lose 80% of the audience.
That's right.
That's also and that's I think the big challenge when organizing conferences.
Definitely, it's a challenge we've had at Conversion World as well, because we've got people who want to know more and want to know more specific technical and really advanced stuff. Whereas some people come in and they're like, "What's A/B testing?" And we're like, "Right." We've had a few people say that. And if it becomes like that, then we need to think about, okay, we need to have primer sessions on that to show them what this is about. But it is a fine balance for any conference organizer to get the right mix of broader talks versus expert level advanced talks.
Because if it's successful, you want to grow and grow in the conference to more people. A large part of the value of conference of obviously the people that's attending, and they connecting to each other, discussing, and that doesn't happen with only 5 people.
True.
So you need those people but then when you need to grow and obviously you need to pay for things. You need to make it more professional. You want to take it to the next level, and that's where you need those funds for. And
that's right.
And if those funds don't come from visitors with higher ticket sales, then they need to come from sponsors. But then still, they usually
need
want more visitors.
That's right. It's a catch-22 situation.
Yeah, exactly. That's interesting. While we're on the topic, Conversion World.
Conversion World 2017 returns on March 9th and 10th.
Which is number 3?
Number 3, the 3rd edition. So the last 2 editions were really exhausting. We had 3 full days of 10-hour sessions, 10 talks back to back. So we've listened to feedback, and people found that it was a bit too overwhelming for them. And as an organizer, it was overwhelming for us as well. And we had single tracks, and each speaker had like between 30 to 45 minutes to give a talk. So based on the feedback we received last year and the year before, we thought of mixing things up this year. And what we're going to do this year in 2017 is we are going to have it as 2 days. And on those 2 days, it's going to be about 6 to 7 sessions. And even then, one of the sessions on each day will be split into multiple tracks. What that will allow people to do is, if you're in travel or e-commerce or lead gen or something specific that isn't covered in the general talks, it gives you an opportunity to listen to talks about that specific area, while still being able to learn about copywriting and persuasion and stuff like that. So it gives people an opportunity to break out into these different sessions and learn more about
something
specific about their industry.
And those different tracks, those will all be video
They will all be video sessions, they'll all be online.
So you need multiple studios to record that?
Something like that, yeah. It's a bigger challenge, but again, it's to change things up a bit. The other big thing that we're also planning is we want local communities to be engaged, which is part of the mission of Conversion World. So the conference is going to be completely free to attend. So any community anywhere in the world can say, we've got about 50 or 60 people attending from Amsterdam, for example, and we want to organize a meetup where we can show it on the big screen. That allows the conference not to just be online, but have an offline element to it, where people can engage with each other. So we are trying to move the conference forward, but also engage communities and move that mission forward as well.
Yeah, and engaging is the trickiest part, I think, with an online conference. That's like we just said, it's the big part of the value of a conference, meeting new people and connecting with them. But obviously online, sitting behind a screen with no one around.
That's true.
That's a really difficult one as an organizer to facilitate and incentivize.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we did have our chat platforms, and people did communicate with other people, you know, to some extent. We knew it was never going to replace a traditional conference format where people were going to be able to network with each other, but it allowed, to some extent, people from other parts of the world to access the content that they wouldn't have otherwise. Because if you think about it, not everyone from countries like India or Australia or Hong Kong travel to these conferences that we're so lucky to have in America or in Europe. So that was what Conversion World was made for in that first place.
Yeah, and as you know, I boldly copied you for Me Magento World.
Yeah.
And actually, we planned it first on to be in the first week of December. But last week we last minute decided to postpone it actually to July 11, 12, 13.
2017.
2017.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Okay,
July doesn't happen anymore in 2016.
Well, we could be time traveling. This could have been filmed at a different time. So
good point. Good point. No, a lot of things are involved. Obviously, we have some experience in organizing events. We organizing Me Magento since 2009.
Sure.
So, not to say it's easy to organize that conference in general, but you're used to, you know what needs to be done. But for an online conference, it's again a different ballgame. You need a lot of new things you need to figure out for the first time. Yeah. And we had the same idea with what you had, like even with all those conferences around. In this case, about Magento. Yeah. It would be great if we can connect those people that don't travel. You have a brilliant speaker in Japan, but no one else is seeing that guy because he doesn't travel for whatever reason. And the other way around, for attendees, they usually, typically, you don't travel more than 200 kilometers for an event.
That's true. Yeah.
So even if you have an event in Paris, maybe people in the south of France hardly go there. Maybe once a year, but you don't regularly go there. It's not that accessible. So to get that content out there to those people and connect those, that's the same idea we had with Me Magento. But we did have difficulty, I think, with communicating the concept the right way. Sure. I think we need to.
I think that was always clearer. That was always the challenge for us in year one. I remember. When we first announced the conference, we set up our Twitter handle, and then we kept messaging a few people that we knew, but they didn't know about Conversion World, and message them on Twitter and say, hey, you should attend Conversion World. And the key thing that we kept getting back is, oh, isn't this just a series of webinars?
Exactly, yeah.
And that's the perception that people have, which wasn't that hard in year two, but in year one, obviously, we've never done it before. And we were aiming for a much more polished online delivery where they had this perception of it being webinar. So we had to change our copy and tweak it to a point where they really understood that this is not just a standard webinar where at the end you're going to be sold to, and that's another key thing. This is not a sales pitch. This is complete education, and it's also a polished performance. It is like if you want to compare it like to a TV studio. because you're getting all those benefits from it.
Yeah.
So definitely, I mean, getting that message across will be challenging.
And also because I think we had quite some discussions also in the community about the price point.
Yeah.
Which is we had the same price point as you had this year, like so 300 euros for the event alone, and 400 for everything.
Videos. Yeah, that's right.
With the videos. And when the perception is, oh, it's a webinar.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna get sold to some product or whatever.
Yeah.
Then that's a tough price to pay.
That's true.
You don't want to do that, and that's something we need to be clear or better at in communicating to our community, I think.
That's right. Yeah.
And also it's organized by a non-profit.
Sure.
But still, people think, well, okay, 300 euro, you make a shitload of money.
Yeah.
We
That's
don't want to give
always
that to you, and that's bullshit. And
yeah, I think a clear thing would be like, where does this money go?
Yeah.
What does it do? Like if it's a not-for-profit.
Yeah.
So a good thing that Buffer, do you know Buffer?
Yeah.
So one thing that they do is like they actually break down to show where the money that you spend, where does it actually go. So it goes to their annual salary, it goes to their development, etc., etc. So that might be a good thing, especially if it's a not-for-profit.
Yeah.
You can articulate that.
Yeah, especially after last, because I don't think that's also a point. I think we should communicate better, but. It's hard for people. Okay, what they only see is what you tend to see, and I'm also to blame for that when I see other prices for other products or whatever. You say, oh, that's why am I paying that much for an iPhone while the cost to build it?
Yeah, sure.
in raw materials.
Yeah.
But it's same for conferences. There's it's taking a shitload of money.
Yeah.
Also with an online conference, to get the webinar software. To build the whole experience around it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
You need the marketing, you need a studio. If you do multiple tracks, you need multiple studios.
That's true.
So you need a location for that. You need a webinar team, so the people doing the recording and the audio and switching the streams and a lot of people are involved with that. And I don't think we need to do a better job, definitely.
Definitely,
to communicate.
I think it's the copy that needs to communicate that message, because it is hard work. But then year two gets easy because
I can imagine.
People know you. A lot of people returning back, and then word of mouth spreads. And as I say, right now we're going for a slightly different model because we want bigger reach. So we're going for a freemium model. Which allows people to attend for free, but then we can also give them workshops. And they can, purchase those workshops.
And it definitely depends also on where you can get the money from and how the business model in that sense is.
Exactly. So we have to heavily rely on sponsors, because if you're not charging the attendees, then where's that money going to come from? Because someone has to pay for, as you say, all these different costs that are involved, and that has to be accounted for. If more money is coming from the visitors, you're less dependent on sponsors. That's true.
Which is usually good for the content.
That's true, definitely, because the sponsors always want some
what sponsors want is speaking.
Yeah, speaking slot. That's
and all email addresses.
That's the other thing. They always ask that, and we've been reluctant to give that. We don't give out email addresses at all, because we put in our privacy policy. If they want some content going out, we can share a link to a landing page, and the audience can then opt into it. And same thing for speaking slots, because we value the content a lot, because people care about the content. No one likes sponsored sessions, and they will not attend it, purely because it's already that prejudice that a sponsored session means it's going to be crap and it's just going to go about sales. So we try not to do that unless it's a really, really good speaker, and they just happen to work with a sponsor, and we're like, okay, so that's where we're at right now in terms of conversion world.
But I do also with pricing, I do see the point that they say, okay, 300 euros maybe for someone in Western Europe or USA, that's okay. But if you want to reach a global audience, for someone in maybe in Vietnam or Indonesia or Asia or Africa or South America, that's a lot more money, relatively speaking. So yeah, but
maybe geolocated pricing for different countries could be an idea. It could be an idea that could be explored a bit further. But it's hard because you are trying to. It's the same thing with time zones. You are trying to cater to everyone, but at some point you can't. Like we had to do it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in the UK, which meant that San Francisco and the western seacoast of America was waking up. It was 6 in the morning. But then the challenge was, how do we involve Australia and New Zealand, because it's the middle of the night for them. But fortunately we had engaged users who really wanted that content, so it again comes down to the fact that they don't get this content anywhere. So they were camping in their offices in the middle of the night and watching these sessions, and that shows how enthusiastic they are. So it's definitely a good sign when people do that.
Exactly. What we're doing this year, what we were planned on doing, and we're definitely going to do it next year because it worked really well. Got a lot of response to it. Is local viewing locations.
Okay.
So we get companies to buy a package license, and then just show it in their office. So, but not only to the employees, but then we publish it on our website, so people can go there to stimulate that interaction between.
That's a good idea. Yeah, that's a really good idea, and you can put them down as local sponsors, for example. So whether that's like a local agency may want to do it if they're a Magento development agency.
Exactly. One thing I wanted to talk about, back to what we were talking about today, effective experiments.
Okay.
How long have you been building it? Now? So 1.5 years, 2 years?
Yeah, we launched the first beta version in March 2015. And in October 2015 we sort of like went out of beta. I say we went out of beta, we're always in this in beta mindset because nothing's ever finished. But that was when we started charging our customers and started building it even further. So it's now like 1.5 years, I'd say. Closer to 2 years now.
How's it going?
It's going really well. We have a backlog as long as to the moon and back. But we get feedback, like customers like yourself have always given feedback, and we work really closely with them. The one thing that I'm really proud of is our development cycle is always fast. And response time and customer success has always been the focus, which is why customers stay with us. And it always surprises people that when they come back after a few months, if they've not engaged with us and they come back after a few months to learn more about the tool, it's evolved so much that they're like, wow, okay, this is great. So those are the few things I'm quite proud of.
How do you guys measure or determine customer success?
Customer success is basically that we're not getting any complaints. But when I say complaints, it's not like something doesn't work or something doesn't work right. It's more like this tool is not what we believed it to be sold, that the way you sold it to us. That would be like the worst thing ever to happen. It's never happened so far, touch wood. But with customer success, the way we measure it is, are they giving us feedback? Are we solving their problems on time? And are they then also being basically happy about it? So that's what we measure it.
And you say backlog to the moon and back. Obviously, in your tool, you also have the prioritization step.
That's right.
How do you guys prioritize?
We have similar prioritization skills. So we use a different tool for this. It's more geared towards product management. And we have it based on features, and each feature contributes to this big vision that we have. So the way we work it out is the task, is it preventing a customer from doing something? Is the task going to help the customer do something better? Or is the task just nice to have? So if it's just nice to have, we try and go back to the customer and say, okay, if this wasn't there right now, what would you do to get around it? To give you a good example, we only recently deployed the effective experiments customizations, the ability to customize it. But there were people who were doing email marketing and were still using effective experiments. Now, if you think of how effective experiments is laid out and the fields that were required, you require test URL, which device is it running on, which URLs is it going to run on, and it's not feasible for email marketing, but people found a way to hack that through and just like basically put nothing in those fields or just put rubbish in those fields. So that allowed us to think, okay, this is, you know, they are working around it, but it is something that would be good for customers to use. And that's why we came out with the model where we can allow customizations. And we always listen to customers with not just the feedback, but as to what they're doing to, you know, work around the problem. What is it preventing them doing? What is it preventing their team from achieving?
Speaking about that vision, where is the tool going to? What's the problem it's solving in the next 2-3 years?
Sure. So the main vision of effective experiments right now is to make sure that we have people testing in a structured manner, where people all across the business have been sold, you know, on that vision of A/B testing.
Yeah.
The next vision after that is allowing people to really move ahead. Once they've got this basic option of, okay, we've been testing and we're getting this momentum right, the next step for effective experiments to jump in is to almost predict where you can get more value in your testing from. So using your data to predict, okay, you should be testing this or you should be testing that. And then also every time you are putting in your test ideas, it will give you some real-time feedback on where you've tested those ideas before and what that success rate was like. So this allows you to get some understanding and work quicker that way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And then we work with a lot of enterprise companies who have their own requests.
Yeah.
So that has a separate backlog, but we want to bring in the capabilities of you being able to build your own visualizations and your own insights that you can share easily with your team.
Yeah. And speaking of enterprise, you guys are going to add that to the pricing model, right?
That potentially will be the case. So like we will have, depending on the features and depending on how the product scales up, there will be a set of features that will be restricted to the enterprise customers. But one thing we will never do is like just move away entirely from the core customers. As I say, it's part of our mission to help you go from, you know, running scattered tests to running structured tests. So there will always be people at this lower end, and we want you to be able to grow with us over time.
Cool. Yeah, and it will be interesting to see over time if there's a lot of customers in there. So to see how that process looks across those different countries. So you have an industry overview almost. Well, of course, biased towards your customers, but to see okay, how many people. What's the success rate of a test, for example?
Definitely, but the one thing that I have to make clear is we don't actually have any access to any customer data. So we've always promised our customers that there will never be any benchmarking done on them or data sharing, which is part of our terms and conditions, but also part of what we believe in, security and privacy. So unfortunately, that is not something we'll be able to do unless we go out and actually ask them those questions, which is something that we could potentially do as part of a study. But it will never be from our data.
That would be good. It would be fun to know. There was the industry standard of inconclusive tests, successful tests.
Sure.
I need to get that somewhere else then.
we might run that study at some point.
Yeah.
But not on our data, but just we'll do a proper formal study on like different markets and different how different communities, different countries and different organizations perform with their testing programs.
Cool. So last question, in 2017, how do you see our market evolving? You had some sessions yesterday about the future. Oh,
the future looked grim.
Looked really grim.
The thing I would say is there will still be that need for conversion optimizers in 2017 at least. But there is a strong thing of machine learning and AI coming into play. It's not a mature market just yet for that, but that will slowly start creeping in.
It's more like a backup system. So you're doing your conscious A/B testing and hypothesis validation, but then that takes a lot of effort and time, and but there's this huge amount of traffic that you're not utilizing to the max. And if you have such a system that can run in the background and then just do its job and then tell you, hey, this is working fine. And, oh wait, that's working. Oh, we should create a hypothesis around that and validate that and see how that works. Yeah. And that I think is really powerful to have. Yeah. So yeah, really looking forward to something like that. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we have a pub quiz to go to.
I think it's finished by now.
Yeah? Oh, that's good. Then we go directly to dinner.
Yeah, that's true.